Okay, so welcome to the SundaysandSeasons.com extended training webinar. Over the course of the next 90 minutes or so, we'll really be getting under the hood of Sundays and Seasons. I encourage you to use the chat pod as your way to communicate with me. We certainly want you to be able to um, get all the questions answered that you have today. And if we can't answer them all right now, I can certainly try to respond to them by email later on, or um, you can always take in another webinar. This webinar is being recorded, so that we'll have it available in our on-demand webinar page, our uh, www.afwebinars.org page. All right, well, we're going to continue on here. Oh, I'm noticing that. What would you most like to get out of SundaysandSeasons.com? Well, we want to subscribe, so let's learn more about this site, and that's fantastic. I'm happy to share more about SundaysandSeasons.com. But let's find out a little bit more about you. How long have you been using SundaysandSeasons.com? You can interact with those two pods, those polling pods. How long have you been using SundaysandSeasons.com? What is your role in worship planning? I'm curious about that as well. First time seeing it. All right. Well, we certainly want to give you as much of uh, a experience of Sundays and Seasons as I can. You know, do stop me if there's ever a feeling like I'm going too fast or something like that. A new subscriber under 3 months. Okay, that's great. So we've got some folks that are fairly new to Sundays and Seasons. It's a very special place. There's nothing like it on the internet. A place that has tremendous versatility for use in the parish setting. No pastors or musicians with us today, apparently, but parish administrators typically are the folks who interact with Sundays and Seasons the most. They're kind of the quarterback in a way of pulling the different worship team members together to get that bulletin done from week in and week out. So hopefully we'll give you some guidance on how to do that a little bit more efficiently. And committee members, that's always great too, especially if you're just trying to figure out if Sundays and Seasons is going to work for you. So do appreciate you having you on this webinar as well. All right, we're going to go to a presenting page. I'm going to present some slides here to kind of give us the lay of the land as we go into the webinar. Do let me know when you can see the slides pop up. One of the things to always keep in mind is that I'm showing you a variety of things through a separate platform called Adobe Connect. So you're not actually seeing my screen directly, or when I go live onto the sharing directly, we're going through Adobe Connect. So sometimes it can get a little blocky. So if you ever sense that that I'm talking but things aren't moving, or you're not seeing things, definitely let me know ASAP so I can reset the meeting. So extended user training, that's what we're about to enter into right now. And I found that often with Sundays and Seasons, it's tough to really explain how significant it is unless we spend a little bit of time with it together. And so we're going to look at that content. Great revised common lectionary based worship content and functionality. Those two words are the words that really come to mind: significant content and seamless functionality when it comes to SundaysandSeasons.com. It's not just content that's available to you to download or copy or what have you. It's content that you can work with in Sundays and Seasons and in the planner in particular. I don't know if you've had much time to work with the Sundays and Seasons planner, but that's kind of the heart of Sundays and Seasons that pulls all these things together. So both content and functionality, that's what Sundays and Seasons is all about. It's important to know at this point also what subscription level you have. For those of you who are subscribed to Sundays and Seasons, let me know in the chat pod if you are aware of your subscription level. Is it a deluxe subscription? Is it a standard subscription? Let me know if you are aware of your subscription level in the chat pod. And it's important to note that because we have tried to make Sundays and Seasons very affordable. And so for congregations that are always going to be using their hymnals, They they have no need to print or project any content. We've given them a very basic version of Sundays and Seasons. That's the standard level of Sundays and Seasons. Now, if you are a congregation that wants to create custom service folders that have hymns included and various kinds of liturgical music, kind of the all-in-one service folder, you definitely might want to think about the deluxe subscription, not only for that reason, but for the fact that the deluxe subscription is the version that you are able to then unlock uh, add-on modules like a preaching module or the video and loops module. As I said, we try to keep the standard subscription very basic, but the bells and whistles are connected to the deluxe subscription. And so if your pastor says, boy, I would like to have that preaching module of Sundays and Seasons unlocked for me, well, if you got the standard subscription, that's not going to happen. So just be aware of that there are some distinctions between those two levels of Sundays and Seasons and their capacity, capabilities. All right, this is an example of a bulletin that I created in Sundays and Seasons, and I circled, for example, some of that music that you can download out of a deluxe subscription, but those music graphics are not available to you in a standard subscription of Sundays and Seasons. So just be aware of that. If you are familiar with Sundays and Seasons, you know that Sundays and Seasons puts together something that we call a worship plan. Sundays and Seasons doesn't really create this final bulletin, even though everything you see on this bulletin has come out of Sundays and Seasons. Sundays and Seasons delivers content in a pretty generic fashion. 8.5 by 11, Times New Roman, 12-point font, something that you can easily work with in your word processors. But we cannot possibly anticipate all the different bulletin styles and formats and what paper you use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you still need to massage the downloaded content from Sundays and Seasons into your local worship formats and on your word processor. But we'll be talking about that here in a little bit. I do want to say that there are extended modules in Sundays and Seasons. What does that mean? Well, if your pastor wants to unlock the preaching module and the preaching content in Sundays and Seasons, that's a $39 a year add-on to your deluxe subscription. If you use video in your church and you want to unlock video content, we have licensed hundreds of videos and loops from Travis Reed's Work of the People project, all curated to the Sundays festivals, commemorations of the church year. If you use video and you want some highly significant, high impact, high resolution video to download out of Sundays and Seasons, that's a $99 a year add-on to your deluxe subscription. One other aspect of Sundays and Seasons is that it has a partner site called Prelude. Prelude is, I've described it as Sundays and Seasons for the church musician, but it's really much more. It's a place where they can organize their music libraries, where they can buy music, et cetera, kind of like iTunes for church music. So Prelude is a really cool site. Well, now Prelude and Sundays and Seasons talk to each other. If your Sundays and Seasons subscription and your Prelude subscription are on the same account number, they will actually interact with one another now. And so the planning that the musician does in Prelude can be seen in Sundays and Seasons and vice versa. Well, a Prelude subscription is $79 a year if the musicians in your congregation are interested in that. And there's a separate webinar for Prelude entirely that I do. So this is what we're going to be going through together. Part one, I do a high-level tab-by-tab overview of Sundays and Seasons. We're going to get some orientation to the homepage, look into the My Account portion of Sundays and Seasons. And then after we have dealt with some of those things, we'll get into the planning aspects of Sundays and Seasons. So we'll get into part two, worship plans and template building, add-on modules, and conclude with some final Q&A. There'll be a 5-minute break in between those two training portions of the training agenda. So yeah, we are going to tour the site's lectionary-based worship content. one of the best places to look for that content is in the library. If I go into that, which I will when we go live onto the site, you'll see that there's 5 different hymnal collections that are uploaded into Sundays and Seasons. There's lectionary and psalm resources. There's the content that you would find in the Sundays and Seasons print annual. And one of the great things about sundaysandseasons.com is some of the best content from those Sundays and Seasons print annuals not only has been uploaded, but preserved in Sundays and Seasons. So you can see more content in the online version of Sundays and Seasons than you'll ever find in a single a print annual. So we like to keep the online version just rich with the best of those Sundays and Seasons print resources. You can also find a couple different series of children's bulletins in Sundays and Seasons that you can click on and download as PDFs. Now, if I go into Evangelical Lutheran Worship Hymnal and I drill down, the library contains all the text-based liturgical content in Sundays and Seasons, and I drill down to occasional services for the assembly and occasions in the church's life. I'll find there's welcoming new members to the congregation. Do you know what those 3 icons are for? Can anyone venture a guess at the one on the left, what that icon might do for you? What's the one on the left do? Let me know in the chat pod. And do feel free to use that chat pod, again, to ask any questions and to respond. Chris and Randy are typing. Yeah, preview. Exactly, preview. If you want to look a little bit more closely at something, that's the icon to use. The one in the center is download, and that's your best way to get content out of Sundays and Seasons. I know people like to, they like to, select content, just dragging, screen scraping, as we call it, out of Sundays and Seasons. They even right-click on some of our images and whatnot to get that content. But really, if you want your highest quality content out of Sundays and Seasons, your best formatted content, always use that download button to get that material out of Sundays and Seasons instead of just screen scraping or right-clicking. How about that icon to the far right? Has anyone used that icon yet, either in your subscription experience or your free trial experience? Has anyone used that one? Do you know what that one's for on the right there? That one's actually a pretty cool feature of Sundays and Seasons. It allows you to move content from one place in Sundays and Seasons to another. Now, this is not the same as your operating system clipboard, but it functions in a very similar way. Let's say there's a subrite that you want to use. You've seen it in the library. You want to move that into a worship plan. You can use this copy to clipboard function to put it on the clipboard and have it available when you're in the planner to drop into your worship plan. Okay, so we're going to be also learning to make the most of the homepage together. The homepage is a pretty important place in Sundays and Seasons. The calendar in Sundays and Seasons is really quite powerful. Whenever you click on a day in Sundays and Seasons, the banner changes to that day, so you know what day of the church year you're into, and there's content that shifts. Content in the music area, the preaching area, the visuals area, all become appropriate to that day in the Revised Common Lectionary. That's also true of the planner. When you click on a day in the calendar, invisibly to you, but in the planner, the readings will auto-populate, prayers will auto-populate. Sundays and Seasons knows what day you've clicked on and knows what content is appropriate to that day automatically. There's also your content at the bottom of the Sundays and Seasons homepage. Worship plans, worship templates, and custom texts. We'll talk about the distinctions between those 3 categories. Very important distinctions, I might add. Worship templates in particular is something that you can use to really build efficiency into Sundays and Seasons, and I'll be describing that when we go live onto the site. We're going to get some tips for setting up your account, and certainly Sundays and Seasons does allow you to do a number of interesting things. In your account settings, you can set service times and locations. that are unique to your congregation. Uh, um, and by locations, you can get pretty creative about that. Uh, let's say the pastor uh, has a location called uh, shut in home communion. And have a service that uh, would apply to uh, shut in home communions. So that he or she has created. Well, then you would want to uh, apply that to that service, that planning to that location. So it's another way to build efficiency into Sundays and Seasons. And there's also personal settings. You can have as many users of Sundays and Seasons as you want. Um, but maybe you're using Sundays and Seasons different than someone else is. Maybe there are some things that you don't need to see in Sundays and Seasons when you have a download, and so you can adjust your portions to download. Sorry about that. Wow, tickle my throat. We had our choir concert last Sunday, and I think my voice is still affected by that. All right, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit more into the search function under the hymns, the music tab of Sundays and Seasons. You can search by title keywords, tune name. Maybe you don't know the tune name. Maybe you just are know a couple of the lyrics, the key lines. You can search on that as well. You can search on what's available for any lectionary day, as I said, any given year. And then also that it would be year A, B, or C, that is. And you can also search on scripture reference. That's one of the things I mentioned earlier in regard to Isaiah 40. If you're doing a series or your pastor's looking for some particular hymns to back up what's going on with the sermon that day, that's a really key text. Um, then you've got your different collections. And Thomas, Um, I suppose that uh, this is probably the best way to answer this. These are the collections that are available to you in Sundays and Seasons, right? So you have these hymnals and these songbooks that are available to you. Now, if you want to look uh, beyond into a variety of publishers, that's when you might want to think about Prelude, because Prelude gets you into GIA. Prelude gets you into um, Hope Publishing, um, half a dozen or so different publishers that you can actually buy the music directly out of Prelude and download it out of Prelude. So that's what you're seeing here is what you get as far as Sundays and Seasons is concerned. You can find music by their hymn or song number, text meter, key, intonation, composer, um, copyright holder. We give you an example public domain because if you type in public domain under copyright holder, you'll see all the public domain hymns that you can freely print or project that are in Sundays and Seasons. Maybe you've got one particular licensing service. That's a great way to whittle down um, what you are looking for too, because you know that you've got the AF hymn license, but you don't have the other license. So you certainly want to see what's available to you under the license that you have. So hopefully that's um, useful information. All right, so let's go back up to the top. The preaching tab, I know some of you jumped in. I don't know if I've got any pastors in the mix, but if you have a deluxe subscription of Sundays and Seasons, you can unlock the preaching tab in Sundays and Seasons. This gives you some significant uh, essays, introductions from a scholar essays, from a preacher essays. We want our contributing scholars to think about what they want their own preaching pastor to talk about on this particular day as it relates to the text. So we're appreciative what Kristen Johnson Largan says about the text of the day from a preacher. Materials are what mentor preachers would want to talk about as it relates to their own congregation and maybe give folks a little bit of inspiration in the homiletical task. We also have conveniently placed the Gail Ramshaw lectionary notes and ideas for the day, plus legacy essays from New Proclamation. That used to be our preaching site. Now all of our preaching content has been folded into Sundays and Seasons. And so if your pastors want access to this content for use, or maybe you're even in an interim situation or a vacancy situation, and people are saying, "Oh gosh, we need some help here." This is a great place to look for some content. And so that's the optional $39 a year preaching module in Sundays and Seasons. Let's move into visuals now. Visuals are again curated for whatever day you are on. In this particular, we're on the 6th of December. We're looking ahead toward the first. Uh, we're looking ahead toward the first Advent third. Wait a second. What am I talking about here? We're looking ahead. Sorry, I had to reset it. We're looking ahead to the second Sunday of Advent on the 6th. Wow. So that means everything. I just automatically reset everything. I reset the hymns, I reset the preaching content, and now I've reset the visuals too. Yeah, that's what's available now. John the Baptizer by the Jordan as one of the visuals there. If you want a high quality version of this visual, you do click on it, and then you download it, and then you will get a high resolution of the visual. I'll often open up these visuals in my print. I've got a Microsoft computer, so I open up Paint rather. I open up Microsoft Paint and resize it in Paint than if I'm using it just as a small clip art piece versus a bulletin cover, because these can be quite large, and that's one way that I have found that I can easily work with these images by first opening them up in Paint and resizing them there. Okay, so PowerPoint slides. You do have slide templates. I don't know if you use a PowerPoint in your local setting. The slide templates are kind of keyed into our subscription bulletin series. So if you've got the subscription bulletin in people's hands and you're still wanting to provide them slides for music or liturgical pieces, you've got templates that fit that subscription bulletin series. And then there's the other add-on module. For $39, for $99 a year, you can download these high-resolution videos right out of Sundays and Seasons that are curated for this particular Sunday of the church year. We've licensed Travis Reed's Work of the People project, hundreds of videos and loops that you can now freely download if you have, that is, that $99 a year add-on module to Sundays and Seasons. Anybody can look at the videos. You want to see what's in there, but you'll get watermark versions if you try to, low-resolution watermark versions if you try to download them. So that's for congregations that love to use video in their local settings. I'm going to the NRSV Bible now, and there's a couple of things that I want to point out about the NRSV Bible. I'm sure we're all familiar with Bible searches, online Bible searches. But one of the interesting things is we provide this chart. Sometimes our liturgical verses, scripture readings are pretty broken up. And so if you want a really distinct passage of scripture, we give you the means to search on that using these sort of logic functions here. So it's a really interesting and useful table. The other interesting thing that I'm going to point out is some people use the narrative lectionary, or they go off lectionary entirely, and so they'll say, "Gosh, how useful is Sundays and Seasons for me when I don't follow the same calendar structure that Sundays and Seasons uses?" Well, you can put any passage of scripture in reverse lectionary. I use Mark 6 as an example, and go. And then you can find all the Sundays and Seasons content. This will include the preaching content and musical suggestions and art and what have you that are appropriate to Mark chapter 6. So if you want all the Mark 6 content, then that reverse lectionary feature can help you out there. Especially, like I said, if you're going off lectionary or maybe using a different lectionary, you can still get your great content out of Sundays and Seasons using that reverse lectionary feature. Okay, any questions about the content area, the content tabs? As I said, we'll be going into the planner in the second half of this webinar, but any questions so far? I'm going to be going over now to the Sundays and Seasons homepage. If you ever get lost in Sundays and Seasons, always click on the banner, the logo in the upper left-hand corner here, and that'll take you right back to the homepage of Sundays and Seasons. In fact, just to the left, the right of the NRSV Bible there's a little question mark in a circle. Many pages have that as well, this little question mark in a circle icon. That gives you a quick overlay. If you need a quick reminder of what things are on this page, you can click on that and you'll get a little overlay. So here's the homepage of Sundays and Seasons. How do you know you're on the homepage? Well, you're on the homepage when you see the banner to the right. You've got the scrolling art appropriate to that day. To the left, you've got the interactive banner calendar. You see what day you're planning toward, namely the second Sunday of Advent. I was clicking around on the site prior to coming in on this webinar, so that's why I was set back on the first Sunday of Advent. When you start planning on a particular Sunday, it'll stick on that Sunday. Everything will stick on that Sunday until you go to the calendar and start planning on another Sunday. And then it'll stick on that Sunday until you go to yet another Sunday on the calendar. The homepage always has the day texts that are appropriate for the up-and-coming Sunday or the day you happen to be planning for. You have the day resources, which is the creative content from Sundays and Seasons, actually more so, Thomas, than you would find in your Sundays and Seasons print annual, because we've preserved the best of that content from the past. And then subscriber news. If you've got some questions about what the upload process in Sundays and Seasons is, or if there's any maintenance that needs to be done on the site, any tricks or tips, you can certainly look at your subscriber news there. And then at the bottom of Sundays and Seasons homepage is where you find your worship templates, your custom texts, and, as is highlighted, your worship plans. So worship plans, worship templates, and custom text. Does anyone know the difference between these three items? Or do I have a thumbs up if you know, or uh, tell me no that you don't know the difference if you don't know? I'm kind of curious if anybody does know. So yes, no. Eleanor's typing. Eleanor says no, she doesn't know the difference. It's a really important distinction. So worship plans are plans that you have created that are attached to a particular date. You see that date there, 12, 6, 17. Okay, so that's a date connected plan. Even if it's a plan that you've maybe planned 3 years ahead, or a plan that's 3 years in the past. The date will help you find that particular worship plan. But let's say you've created a worship plan that you want to reuse, maybe over and over again. You can save a worship plan that's connected to a date as a worship template. Now, worship templates are um, are based on a folder structure. Pastors' templates, parish administrators' templates. These templates are very useful in that you can start then from something that you've already worked on in Sundays and Seasons instead of starting from scratch. And so, saving a worship plan, which is connected to a date, as a worship template, which you can drop into a folder, really starts to build efficiency in Sundays and Seasons. And you can begin to see some of these actions too. You can edit a plan, you can plus sign, you can add a new plan, you can if you've got it checked, you can trash a plan, you can add a folder. So all of these are functions that you can do in regard to worship templates in this case, or custom text. Now, I think custom text is one of the neatest features of Sundays and Seasons. Maybe there's a prayer that only your congregation does. I've got a unique setting. I serve as a worker priest of a congregation that uses Norwegian in some of its services, and they've got tons of custom texts. Nobody's got this worship resource, these worship resources except them, and so you can easily create your own content in Sundays and Seasons. I'm going to go under local rubrics, for example, instructions for Holy Communion at St. Mark's. So if I click on that and click the edit button, you'll see a little sub right here. Thank you for desiring to receive the body and blood of Christ with your fellow believers at St. Mark's. And they want to know, what this meal means to them, what the ushers are going to do, what they're supposed to do with the different colored cups at the center of the trays. This is some information that would be truly hyper local. But you can create a new custom text in this little editor here, or you can paste custom text into here. As I said before, maybe there's a Advent series you want to do that you've downloaded out of Sundays and Seasons, and you want to now parse it out into text that you can use in the planner. This custom text area is a great place to do that. So so there's some examples of local rubrics, custom texts that are unique to this congregation. Continuing on, let me go back up to the top of the page here and unpack these day texts a little bit. Day texts are all the texts that are appropriate for the second Sunday of Advent. The introductions, confession of forgiveness. Again, if you're familiar with it, because Sundays and Seasons print content, you'll know that a lot of that is offered to you in the print annuals. If you click on the blue type, you'll open that up and be able to read the scripture for the day. So you can, if you so choose, download all of this content in one fell swoop. At the top of this page, there'll be this download this content link here, and that'll take everything on that page and drop it right into your computer. People have asked for that kind of convenience, and the same is true of the day resources. If you want all the creative content associated for this second Sunday of Advent, you can download all the content in this page. Now, why might you want to do that? Well, let's say, for example, you're doing some pre-planning. Your team's doing some pre-planning. They want to look at content kind of in batches. They want to say, yeah, we want to use that. No, we don't want to do that. You could create like seasonal 3-ring binders where you can You can work through these things as a team. The Sunday, uh, the content that's available for the second Sunday of Advent here, creative content includes visuals, um, allusions to TV shows and pop cultures. Well, some of this stuff's great for the preacher, and some of this stuff's great for maybe um, uh, teams that decorate the sanctuary, or so some of it's great for kids. There's let the children come content that you can use as a springboard for a children's lesson. So there's different people who might want access to that content. So you might want to download it all and parse it out and drop it into emails. Or, if there's content you're not using in Sundays and Seasons, um, maybe you want to invite new users into Sundays and Seasons, into your account, so that they can get a good idea of what's available and have access to that. Well, that brings us up to talking about your My Account setting, which we will do in just 1 second. I forgot to mention the new larger calendar. If you want to move around quickly in Sundays and Seasons, especially if you want to go years ahead or years behind to look for worship plans, the larger calendar here is a great way to do it. Now, wherever there's a red book, that means that there's a worship plan associated for that day. And so you can certainly go by years and months ahead or behind. You can create custom calendars out of this page for just your worship planning team. There's these icons. If you want to see what the day texts are for the second Sunday of Advent here on the large calendar, you can. You want to see what day resources, you want to see what the music suggestions are, the preaching suggestions, or the visuals, you can get to all of that from the large calendar here too. So just a kind of a little aside here. Click on the logo, back to the home page. So I want to go to my accounts here before we take a quick break. My account is where you begin to make Sundays and Seasons your very own. You can add locations of different chapel services, the gym, the hospital chapel, the main sanctuary. You can have your 9 o'clock blended service, or your early service, or whatever you want to call it, so that you can better define what you're planning for where, for when, etc. This is where you'll find your subscription information. This is where you can record your licensing. Now, note that there is no electronic connection between you putting your license information here and what happens on these various sites, CCLI or One License, et cetera, et cetera. You still have to do your reporting through them. This is just for convenience, so you remember what your license and expiration dates are. They don't, Sundays and Seasons doesn't actually talk to those sites and do your reporting for you. So yeah, there's a variety of information that you can keep up to speed here in Sundays and Seasons, and that's one of the purposes of your account setting. Another is to set your personal parameters for Sundays and Seasons. This is especially true when it comes to your download. You can set your profile, change your password, security questions, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to particularly go down to this portion to download. If there are some things that you always want out of Sundays and Seasons, maybe you never need Braille, you don't want to see the optional verses to things, you don't need the psalm music, you don't want to see the rubrics, you can choose to deselect those, and globally you'll never get that content. Now you can select all of these areas when you're in the planner, item by item by item. But if you already know globally what you really want and what you don't want, it's a great place to set your personal parameters for use in Sundays and Seasons. Do you want Sundays and Seasons to auto-replace content, the prayers from the print annual, the intercessory prayers? Then you say yes if you want the site to do that for you. If you want to use the NRSV Bible or the more inclusive readings for the assembly, you can make that selection too. And you can also decide whether or not DocX downloads are available to you, are preferable to you, especially if you have a Mac product, or if Doc file formats are preferable for you. So you can select all that there and save those changes. Have you lost sound? Has everybody lost sound? Has everybody lost sound? No, you're fine. So just want to double check there. Okay, so Brandy, I don't know what to say. It looks like you should have sound. Do you have 5 green bars in the upper right corner of your screen? Hopefully you do. That means we're well connected. I don't know if there's an internet issue going on here on your end or not, but it sounds like we're still good. But thank you for saying that, Brandy. Brandy, can you hear us now? I'm gonna pause here for a second. Can you hear me now, Brandy? We're gonna continue. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I think Brandy signed in again too now. Okay, so you can hear me. Okay, great. Fabulous. All right, we're moving into the user profiles now, Sundays and Seasons. This is where you can manage your users. You can set your users. Um, you can edit your users. This is all really useful for your local setting. Just be aware that there's no firewalls in Sundays and Seasons between users. In other words, you can set personal preference, but you will all see one another's content. And so, having good communication on your team is really, really critical. How many users can you put in Sundays and Seasons? You can put as many as you want. We have a Augsburg Fortress account that literally has, I think it has hundreds of users on it. So that's something certainly that you can adapt to whatever your local team needs are. All right. Any questions so far? We're going to take a little break here. Um, uh, if you have Thomas, if you have the deluxe subscription, and when we get into the planner, I'll demonstrate that. Right now, we're gonna take a quick 5. Don't go anywhere. I'm not going to shut anything down. Actually, I'm going to put up a one of the sample videos as we take 5 here. Just a little bit of break here in Sundays and Seasons. So this is one of the videos that you can see for Advent. I am present. So if you need to take a quick break, grab a quick coffee or whatever, we'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll be back at 12:55. I'm going to get going again. So we're going to take a quick break.
The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burden down. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burden down. lay your burden down. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burden down.
Okay, I'm back again, and back into kind of the next phase of of our Sundays and Seasons training, namely getting a chance to see a demonstration on how to build a downloadable worship plan. And then along the way, we certainly do want to see all the interactivity that happens in the process of building a plan, and how radically you can actually change a plan to fit your local setting. Um, if it's a plan you really think is pretty great and you want to use over and over again, as I mentioned, you can convert your worship plan into a worship template. We'll take a look at how to do that as well. And then when you have this template, you can, by way of and the edit button on the bottom of the home page where you have those three columns of worship plans, worship templates, and custom text in those folders, you can get into that template and edit that template separately too. But templates are your friends because they allow you to not necessarily to start from scratch, but to start from work that you've already done. And along the way here, I hope you'll gain some proficiency in the identification and use of the icon-based tool sets. That's a pretty important part of what we're going to be doing here too over the next half hour. So let's go back onto the site. I'm going to share again with you my page in Sundays and Seasons, and I will hope that you'll share with me again that you are seeing that page. So if somebody could give me a thumbs up on that so we can move forward, that would be great. Are you seeing the second Sunday of Advent? Chris is typing. Good. Okay, fabulous. You know, I did want to answer Thomas's question quickly here. So Thomas, yes, if I go under music and I go under hymn and I prepare the Royal Highway, And if I let's see if this does have the Harmony version. Yes, see, there's the Harmony version. If I download this, um, I have to, if it's copyrighted, I have to give this information related to the number of copies I'll be needing. But it does download right here when I do download file. And when I open that up, and open it up on my other screen here, so I'm going to move that over. Um, uh, Especially hymns and liturgical pieces, they have very high resolution graphics connected to them. This is what I'm showing you now is you can only do in a deluxe subscription because you cannot download hymn graphics out of a standard subscription of Sundays and Seasons. So you need to decompress this file, extract it, and that's when you'll get, the this is the Harmony version right here as a clip art, not as a clip art, as a TIFF image rather, high resolution TIFF image. So hopefully that was helpful to you, Thomas. Okay, so let's go into the planner. There's a variety of ways to get into the planner. Um, Really, you can get to it via this button up here with the rest of the category buttons. You can get it through this planet button in the middle of the banner under the day. You can even get to the planner here by clicking under, uh, excuse me, we're in the hymns and psalms and psalmody area. Sorry about that. Under the Sundays and festivals, you can get it here by clicking on this hyperlink, and then it'll get you to the planner too. I'm just going to hit planet in the banner, and it takes us to the second Sunday of Advent. Um, Here's where you can choose what service you're planning for in terms of the time of the service, the place of the service, chapel, gym, hospital, chapel, main sanctuary. Here's also where you can choose your template. So if you want to start from a template that you've created and that you've saved into one of your folders, that's the place to go to is templates, and that starts from something that you've already worked with. I'm going to start from scratch, however, and I hit the planet button. Who's done this, by the way? Let me know in the chat pod if you've already sort of played around with this planning process. Yes, owner says yep. Chris said yep. Well, it's a three-part process: select-based liturgy, customize service elements, review, and download plans. So on says yes. Also, you need to start somewhere. Even if you do something radical like a home communion service that you really start to whittle down to something you can get done in maybe 15, 20 minutes or something like that. You have to start with one of the base plans that we've provided. Now, what you end up with might look like nothing like that base plan, but you need to start with one of them. I'm going to pick ELW Holy Communion Setting 3 as my first move here, select base liturgy. So this now opens up the planner. We're planning for this Sunday, December 10th. You'll see second Sunday of Advent, liturgy, the Holy Communion Setting 3. And you begin to see quite a few more actions that you can take here in the planner. I do want to say that each element of this worship service, ELW Setting 3, is broken up into separate, what we call service elements. These service elements you can omit, you can move around, you can add substitute service elements. That's one of the coolest aspects of Sundays and Seasons when you get into the heart of this planning process. Moving from the top, if you want to change the name of this, maybe we know that we want this to be a template. So you could say our Advent ELW 3 template. Check. So you can save it as a template. If you want somebody from your worship planning team to sort of peer into what you're doing with this worship plan, about to become a worship template, you can click on this permanent link, and there's a URL connected to every single plan, and you could just drop that URL copy that, drop that into an email, and they can go right to the plan if they're also a user. Scrolling down even further, you find the opportunity then to um, uh, edit this plan in Prelude. This is, again, if you've got a musician who's doing some work in this plan, they can do it in Prelude and send it back and forth. Well, you don't really send it; you just see it back and forth in these various platforms, Sundays and Seasons, and then Preludes for the musicians. Worship plan notes. This is an introductory section here where you can begin to add your own content here. If I go worship plan notes, I could say CMS. It's going to be a new member. Packets are needed. So this could be like a chat box just between you and other members of your worship planning team. That never has to be seen, right? That can just be left connected to this plan. If you want to download, however, what's in the worship plan notes, then you check that, and that'll be part of a download. See that flash green? That means it automatically saved that. If you want to include the Sundays and Seasons introductions to the day, you can look at that and say, oh yeah, we want that content to introduce people to the service. We want that to see that in the bulletin. I'll check that. That'll be part of my download. The gospel messages. These are devotionals that connect the gospel for the day up with the day in the church year that you're on. I know various people use these in various ways. You could create Advent devotionals out of them if you wanted to, and just download the gospel messages and eliminate everything else, I suppose. I'm not going to click that. Let's check the upcoming. Oh, Lucia, yeah, Santa Lucia Day. I know the Norwegians are going to want to see that, so I'll go ahead and check that. So, as I scroll down, I consider how we want to build our service. Is the gathering the very first thing you do in worship? Is that the very first thing you do? Or is there something that appears in your worship, your local orders of worship prior to the gathering? Let me know in the chat pad. I can give you an example of something that appears in many places before the gathering, and that would be announcements. So if you take this arrow to the far left, insert new element, what you get is a brand new row here in Sundays and Seasons, a row that I can entitle announcements. And this is a bit of custom text here, and I can add more content on that. But when I call it a custom text, then I get a editor, and so I can actually add a few announcements in there if I want, maybe for the efficiency version of this particular worship plan. I can drag announcements ahead of gathering. See how I did that? I used the up-down drag arrow, and so I can move that around. If I want to put under announcements, maybe prelude, and then call that a custom text, so I can add more content. I now have a prelude in here, and I can open this up, and I can put in here the advent of our God. Maybe there's a prelude based on that hymn. Not sure, but I'm going to say that there is. So now we've got that. Maybe we want to italicize that. We can use some of these simple word processing items to do that. So as we look at this is now what it would look like in the download. To the far right, if you see these magnifying glasses, that's exactly what you're going to get in your download. Right? So whatever you see in here, you are going to get in your download. So for example, confession and forgiveness, if I look at that, to the far right, click on that, you'll see all these options. That's because ELW setting 3 gives you options on how you can do the confession and forgiveness. To resolve all those options, you need to select one. So if I select just the first one, name of the Father, God of all mercy and consolation, most merciful God, and the mercy of Almighty God. So now I've made some selections, right? And so I've resolved the options here. Maybe you'll look at this and say, gosh, I don't want to see any of that. We don't need to see any of those rubrics in there, those rubrics in red. What do I do about that? Well, then you can use this select area under portions to download, and you can omit the rubrics. Let's take a look at it now. So that's now what you'll get as your download in Sundays and Seasons. And so Sundays and Seasons will always give you more than you want. What you need to do is sort of whittle it down to really what's useful to you. And then if it's something you want to reuse, save it as a template. Let's add some more content to this second Sunday of Advent. Remember, I said that we wanted, or I think it was Eleanor who said rather, we wanted to put in a lighting of the Advent wreath. Well, I copied the lighting of the Advent wreath onto the Sundays and Seasons clipboard. So let's go to open up a new element, new service element. Go to clipboard item, select one, and there's that lighting of the Advent wreath from the library that I've been able to move now into this worship plan. As I continue to scroll down, I may say, well, gosh, Thanksgiving for baptism. There's so much going on. We really don't use that. I can use the second icon cut element from this location, and I can remove now that from my worship plan. If I want to move the gathering song up closer around the lighting of the Advent wreath, I can do that. And let's talk about this for a little while. Maybe you don't call it gathering songs. Maybe you call it opening hymns. And so you can see perhaps now why you might want to save something as a template if you've done some pretty radical work on this order of service. The hymn areas are really important to look at. I'm going to put ELW 504. Oops, sorry about that. By way of illustration, I know that it's been a big hymn for us this year over 2017, but it gives you a lot of the content here connected to A Mighty Fortress. So if I look at the preview under portion of download, I will get all of this. I will get the harmony. I will get the melody. I'll get the words. You'll say to yourself, my goodness, I don't need all that in my download. Let's select some stuff. Maybe we only need because we're going to be using our hymnals. Maybe we only need the title and the hymn number. Well, you can have just title and hymn number if you want. Maybe the choir will be processing and they want to have the words in front of them, but they don't need the music. Well, now you've got, as part of your download, the title and the words. So all this is ways that you can get to exactly what you want in your download. As I continue to scroll down, let's look at Kyrie for a second, because I want to illustrate one of these other actions here: replace with content from another liturgy or alternative worship text. Now, it's going to default to the Kyries that are in ELW setting 3. But maybe you want to use a Kyrie from one of the other hymnal collections in Sundays and Seasons. If I use this button here, the replace button, I now have access to all the Kyries that are in Sundays and Seasons. I can even choose one here from a Spanish Kyrie and include that now in our order of service. All right. So element by element by element, you move through, you make selections, you add, you subtract, and you notice here the readings are already in place because it knows that you're planning for the second Sunday of Advent, so you don't have to cut and paste in readings. The readings are automatically populated there for you. You do have to decide how you want to terminate these readings: the word of the Lord, or word of God, word of life. So again, selections to make. If we scroll down even more, we see the creed here. Now, if you recall, we wanted to add the welcoming new members to this service. And this would actually be a very good place to do it. Select an element type to insert in this location. It's another clipboard item. Um, welcoming new members to the congregation. Check. So now I've got this subright added to what we're doing here. And there is a creed embedded in the subright, so I don't need the creed above it. So I will omit that service element. Okay. I'm going to put under piece one more item here. This one is not on the clipboard, however. This is in my custom text folder. So if I go under custom text, and then I go under local rubrics, I can find those instructions for Holy Communion at St. Mark's that I talked about earlier and drop that in from the custom text folder into this worship plan. And so we go. Do you have any questions or anything more that you want me to demonstrate about the planner itself? Be happy to. Some people have said, well, what if I want to use the confession and forgiveness that's out of Sundays and Seasons? Well, that's a really great question. I can use that replace button in that regard too, and pick the Sundays and Seasons resources. And that's how I moved the Sundays and Seasons confession and forgiveness into my worship plan. Any questions about the worship plan? Is there something that you've struggled with, something that you don't quite understand? Okay, so Thomas says no. Well, then let's continue on. The third stage, review and download files. When I hit continue, I'm now given the opportunity to preview everything that I've done, which is, I think, always a good idea, to preview it as it would appear in your download. All right, so you'll see the introduction to the day, upcoming commemorations, which I checked. Oh, there's my worship plan notes. New member packets are needed. I should probably go and uncheck that. Announcements are in there now. Prelude is in there. The text of a mighty fortress. There's the lighting of the Advent wreath. And so here's our Spanish Kyrie. So there's also some things we haven't resolved yet, right? We didn't work on the candle gold praise. So all those options are still there. As I continue to scroll down, and there you'll see the readings that are auto-populated. They'll be part of your download. All this will be part of your download. And so you need to think about what you want as your download that will be useful to you, and then choose accordingly in Sundays and Seasons. Here's the welcoming new members of the congregation. And if I scroll down even more, I'll find the instructions for Holy Communion at St. Mark's. So there you go. Let's say this is exactly what we want. Well, it's not, because there's still a lot of things I could be resolving in here. You might want to go back to make changes. You can certainly do that. I am going to make a change. I am going to deselect my worship plan notes, and I'm also going to save this. Notice this save button here between start over and continue. I'm going to save this as a template. And I can drop it into any folder I want. Let's say it's pastor's folder. And now I've got this Advent ELW3, and I can change the name if I want there, template that I can use now for let's say the balance of the Sundays of Advent. So that's one of the things that I really recommend when you've really created something that you want to reuse or is very much local to your congregation. Definitely save it as a template. When it's time to finally download the worship plan and requested music graphics, you're given options here about clip arts that's appropriate. Do you want that or not? Do you want these bulletins for the kids? You can choose to do that too. But I'm just going to download the worship plan and requested music graphics. Probably going to take a little bit. There's a lot of content here, including content that we did not resolve yet. But it is popping up here in my tray. And again, it appears as a zip file. You cannot work with this content until you extract it or unzip it. That's when it'll appear in a way that you can truly manipulate your local word processor. So while it's doing that, any final questions about Sundays and Seasons? While I'm still on the site, so here we are. Here's our Advent ELW3 template. All all associated music graphics. What's interesting about the template when I open it up, and you'll see that it appears in this sort of very generic Times New Roman 12-point font um, uh, format that you then can manipulate however works best in your local word processor. But here's a Mighty Fortress is our God. When you have links to some of this content, these links take you right to the associated graphics that came with this ELW Setting 3. Let's take a look at that. Click on that. Yeah, okay. So what will open up now is the graphic that's appropriate to that location, which you treat like any other graphic. You can paste it, you can crop it. It's taking a while to open up here. In fact, it might be opened up under a layer of something else at this point. But yeah, let's see what pops up somewhere. All right. Well, with that, curious as to whether there's general content help desk. Yes, actually there is. Well, it's not really a help. Oh, there it is. It was buried underneath. So that's what you would get related to the glory of God in the highest. All right. So I'm going to close that. Go back to the site, and so if you go under help here, there is a help wiki. Chris, I don't know if you've been to the help wiki. It's really quite detailed. That's a really good place to go. There's also something called web help that you can go to. At the bottom of the page, there's a link to get to the web help. So hopefully, I have it. Thanks. So yeah, that's something you might want to take a look at. That Sundays and Seasons help wiki. All right. Well, I am leaving the site now. Unless somebody's got something that you want me to demonstrate, something else you want to see or you'd like more information on, I'm going to be leaving the site and going into sort of a closing layout for this webinar. Hopefully you learned something new here today. Did somebody learn something new? I hope so. Maybe we can have a little bit of a quiz. I'm going to open up the presentation here. And all these icons, we talked about all these icons, right? So here's the quiz. Planner tools. What are the tools that you use when you're planning an order of service in Sundays and Seasons? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Anybody want to try to go after that one? Put it in the chat pod. So you think the planner tools are 1? That's number 1, Eleanor. Anybody else? Oh, I got a few people typing. Thomas, 3. Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, but the planner tools are actually 4. Insert a new element. Cut an element from the plan. Add, replace, like that Kyrie, replace that Kyrie that's in ELW setting 3 with one from somewhere else. And move an element up and down in your worship plan. Or edit the name of an element, or look at what you're finally going to get as your download. You preview your download for each element. How about local content management tools? You want to work with your local content in Sundays and Seasons, your worship plans, your worship templates, and your custom texts. What tool set do you find there? No, nobody's venturing. After the first attempt, nobody's venturing for a second attempt. Nope. Well, the local content management tools are number 3. You can add a new worship planner template right there at the bottom of your homepage. You can edit one. You can download one. You can trash it. You can put it in a folder or organize it in the case of a custom text or a template. The Sundays and Seasons content categories, well, that would be your day text, your day resources, the associated music for that given day, your preaching content, and your visual content too. Yes, absolutely too. And then finally, if you want to share a URL to a particular plan, or you want to look at an overlay, that leaves number one. Great, we all did great. All right. Well, I'm going to yeah. We're getting there, Chris. We are. We really are. So I'm going to end here with this sending layout. You can download a couple of documents right out of this webinar. You can download a FAQ PDF. If you hover over that under document to download, you can do that. There's a still need help document. I think that's kind of what you're asking too, Chris, as to where all can I go for help related to Sundays and Seasons. You might want to download that document. There's some places that you can link to. Actually, at the end of this webinar, you'll go directly back to our webinar page. You can always take in another webinar, that's for sure. I don't know how long it's going to last because we're moving into a different kind of a training module. But there is that Sundays and Seasons on-demand training login. We do have some training modules. I've parsed out this webinar into smaller chunks and provided some documents related to that. And that would be this on-demand training login here. I don't know if you've seen that under links to more information. Some of our screens show different things. You might have to scroll to it and then click on it. But that's something you might want to click to also if you want some more information. You can always get a 14-day free trial. If you're ready to buy Sundays and Seasons, go to that Sundays and Seasons pricing and sign up info page, and you can begin your adventure with Sundays and Seasons then. So, any more questions? This is really all I've got for you all, and we're bumping up to our 90 minutes here, and I don't want to go overtime. I want to respect your time. And so if anybody has any more questions or comments, feel free to plop them in the chat pod. No, thanks so much. You're quite welcome, Chris. This has been fun. And I hope you learned a little bit of something along the way. Fantastic. Well, God's blessings to you all for the work that you do on behalf of the worship life of your local congregation. And we certainly want to enrich that worship life by way of Sundays and Seasons. Once you get into Sundays and Seasons, I know it's just like anything else. You may feel like you're playing chopsticks with it at first, and Chopin comes later. But I think Sundays and Seasons are a really fun way to do worship planning and to really get creative. Especially as entire worship teams come together and talk about what's available to them and how they might structure it to edify your local assembly. So, with that, God's blessings to you. The Lord bless the rest of your Advent and into your Christmas season. And I just pray that you might find something like Sundays and Seasons to be a real platform for some really great worship experiences. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say thank you very much for participating in this Sundays and Seasons new user training, extended training webinar. You all take care now. Bye-bye.